Welcome back to More Than Macros Radio. I'm your host, Coach B. Now, here's the thing. I'm wearing a headset. I've never done this before. It's weird. I can hear Karen so clearly. We look so clear. This is probably going to be, this will be recorded, maybe even uploaded onto YouTube. But I'm looking at myself, Karen, I'm thinking, why do we do this? Why do we, what's going on here? I don't know. I got this.
When I saw you, this is the first time I've seen you with the headset on, and I was like, "Oh, should I grab?" Because I have wireless Bose noise canceling headset, but it's probably not charged, so I can't put on my headset so that we look like matchy. But
I'm trying to be this professional podcaster, and whatever.
Either that, or you have to get one of those mics that clips to your shirt, or you hold the mic in front of your.
I know, right? Jeez. Yeah. Okay, so today we're talking, we could sit here and talk about gibberish all day long, I'm sure. But we thought we would get together, and it's coming, 'tis the season to it's getting close to the holidays. And so we're talking holidays as in Christmas, because obviously we're recording this the middle of November. It would be the American Thanksgiving coming up right away. I don't know if this is going to be posted by then, but it will be before Christmas for sure. So we thought we would talk holiday and navigating and all the things that happen during the holiday season that most of our clients have at one point in time in their life struggled with, or we have, right? So this is not going to go into any particular order or theme or anything like that. I do think that we could start off by really just having a conversation about the approach to the holidays. And this approach, I think, is similar to someone who travels, someone who's taken a vacation. Karen and I often will say to or ask our clients, what do you want from the experience? Because I think that's the baseline, Karen. I really do think that people need to establish what this would look like. Mm-hmm. And when I'm talking experience, I'm basically asking you the question of do you want to be tracking? Do you want to be worried about food? Do you want to work out? Do you want to be someone who is constantly thinking about food 24/7 and what's in it? Or do you just want to be having a peace of mind, being mindful? What does this experience look like for you? And how do you actually want to feel? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So, and I think, when it comes down to it, anything that we talk about today can be applied to not just the holidays, but any kind of event, whether you're going to a wedding or somebody's birthday party or, a summer barbecue, all of these things can be applied. But I agree. What do you want that event to look like? Whether that's Christmas, whether that's traveling, whether that's somebody's birthday party, a wedding, what do you want it to look like? And like you say, do you want to be tracking the whole time? And if so, that's okay. We can do that, right? We might dive into why do you feel like you need to be tracking when you're on a vacation? But by the same token, the flip side, if you come to me and say, I just want to say fuck it for 2 weeks, I would also ask you why, right? Because there are some things that we need to dig into there. Because if you're feeling I just want to just let loose and do none of this for 2 weeks, then maybe we need to have a look at what we're doing outside of those 2 weeks of vacation, right?
Yeah. And I think too, when we're asking what you want this experience to be, it does go back to us as coaches recognizing and understanding where you are in your phases. So if you're someone who is deep into a deficit, we're going to have the conversation anyways. Okay, so it's probably not the best time of year to be trying to diet,
right?
For fat loss. So this might be a great time to take a diet break, but with that diet break, what does this look like? And for some people, they might say to me, I do want to track most of my meals and stay within those maintenance calories. And then get right back on track on January 2nd, right? They'll give me a specific date. Or they might just say, you know what? I know you're talking about a diet break, but I'm actually just so tired of dieting right now that I don't even want to track. And if that's the conversation, again, it just goes back to the understanding that while that's great, understand we've come out of a diet phase. Theoretically speaking, I want to bring you up to maintenance. So if we do that and you're deciding in advance that you don't want to track, then maybe we should cut your deficit sooner So we can at least give you a week of tracking so you see what those calories look like in terms of maintenance, so that now you have a better understanding. Because remember, going from a deficit to maintenance at Christmas, it's kind of scary because you've been so used to these smaller portions that maybe you don't actually know. And your brain is probably going to be like, I can't wait, all the treats, all the things that, you look forward to, turkey and stuffing and all the baked goods, like you're going to go into overdrive. So it really is like right now, like we're in the middle of November. This is the kind of stuff you should be thinking about right now.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a deficit, what that phase looks like. If you're just in a like general health situation where you just like have been really trying to figure out what to eat, how to eat, that kind of thing. Again, the experience can look different because you might be like trying to track right now and maybe you don't want to then. Yeah. Or maybe you said to, yourself, like, I really need to have some kind of control here. Mm-hmm. And now you're not sure what that control mechanism is. Like, how do I do this? Like, what restraint do I, like, I don't want to feel like I'm restricting myself, but, so having this conversation, I think is really, really important. Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Karen?
Just to understand what consequences seems like such a negatively sounding word, but
I think it's an honest word.
Whatever choice you make, there are going to be consequences. Yep. Like there's a good side and a bad side to every single choice we make in life. And if we decide to go from being in a deficit to being at maintenance for like the holiday season, are you okay with potentially the scale going up, with potentially you feeling a little more bloated, with potentially your clothes not fitting as like the way they fit right now? And are you okay with that? Are you okay knowing that like we can come back out of that? Like there's, it's not the end of the road. Like there's stuff that we can do once the holidays are over, but you also have to understand that going from a deficit into maintenance may have some things come along with it that you might not feel comfortable with. Right. So looking at what those things might be ahead of time and developing a comfort level with it and understanding that, okay, this is temporary, this is normal, this is what happens when, when you're not in a deficit and what that might look like, and just, understanding it and being okay with it.
Yeah. And I think that like, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later in the segment here about overeating, but it really goes back to what Karen had talked or mentioned earlier too, is like, if you're like in this place of like, fuck it, like it's the holidays, we have to have this conversation because this could very well be why you've been so stuck. Mm-hmm. Because that fuck it mindset, it can turn into, and I don't have any scientific numbers or literature in front of me, but I do know that I've had clients that have gone away and come back and they are up 5-10 pounds. Mm-hmm. And for some people, it's just water, but for some people, it is not. And if every year this happens, and let's not forget, Christmas happens, but then, it's New Year's Eve, and then it's Family Day, and then it's Easter, like all these celebrations happen. If every single time you say, fuck it, how many times are you doing that? 5-6 times a year? Like that could really add up. And it could be why you're stuck. Because every time you do things really, really well, you just go right back. And so my point here is that fuck it mindset then also says, I don't care about my habits, behaviors that I've been working on. And that is the wrong mindset to have. Right. I believe in my heart, and you said consequences, but I feel like you and I need to start being, pretty, I don't want to be blunt, but because, I understand mindset and I understand, we got to empathize and do all these things. But honestly, if you choose that route, you are choosing to just say, I don't actually care anymore. Mm-hmm. And you're also saying like, what I learned doesn't matter anymore, but it does matter, because that is why you keep going through these cycles of like, oh, come Christmas time, I just gained all the weight. And then come January 1st, you want to lose it all again, or whatever that looks like, even change it, just your habits in general. Like, why do you say this? Yeah. So I really do think that when you look at the experience, ask yourself those hard questions of like, well, last year I said, fuck it, and look what happened. Is that really what you want this time? Right. Do you want this guilt and shame? Do you want to feel like great about your choices and know that, you know what, Coach K and Coach B or Coach so-and-so or myself, I've taught myself portion control. I can navigate this Christmas holiday and be fine. I
Mhm.
know I can maintain, and I'm okay with gaining a few pounds because I know that, yeah, January 1st always works well for me to kind of like reboot, and I'm okay with that. I'm good with wanting to dial things in, but I'm also okay with just maintaining because I know right now is not the time. I can't navigate lower calories. I can't navigate being perfect. I can't navigate a lot of these things. And I know using that word can't is not the right frame of mind, but it actually is the truth for you in that moment.
Yeah.
And owning that truth is important because if you try to pretend that you can navigate this, you're going to fuck it up hard. And then that's where that overeating, the guilt, and all the things happen. And also, too, the pressures and stuff like that. Right. So that's where I'm at. The experience has to make sense for
Yeah.
you, the phase, the timing of things. Like it really does have to make sense. And you can choose to track or not, or you can be mindful, portion control.
Yeah.
But I don't think fuck it should be anywhere near this equation, if
No,
I'm
I
being
don't think
honest.
so either. I think it's a conversation that needs to happen between client and coach about, like you say, what do you want this to look like? Okay, so now we have a framework of what you want it to look like. How are we going to fill that framework, right? Are we going to look at some of the habits and behaviors that you've been working on? And are we going to pick 3 of those habits and behaviors that you are going to carry forward with all the way through the holiday season, right? Maybe we've been working on like 6 habits and behaviors, but we're only going to pick 3, right? Can we pick those 3 and can we carry them on? Like, for example, you're going to start out every day by weighing and measuring your breakfast and making sure that you get a solid protein source at breakfast every morning. Maybe that's one of the habits that you're going to do every day, regardless of what the holidays look like, right? Is that something that can be used to fill that framework? Can we also maybe look at the definition of progress? And maybe during the holiday season, and again, this can apply to camping season or to, a month full of weddings in the summer or whatever. Can you redefine what progress looks like, right? Maybe if you've been in a fat loss phase and you're in a deficit, your markers of progress look like your clothes are fitting better, the numbers going down on the scale, that kind of stuff. But maybe during the holidays, the marker of progress this year is not going into the rabbit hole that you've gone into every single other year previously, right? And come out the other end 10 pounds heavier. Maybe staying the same is the definition of progress this year. So I think there are
Hell
a few
yeah.
conversations that coaches and clients need to have around, okay, what do you want this to look like? How are we going to make that happen for you? And right down to not just the actual practicalities of the day-to-day stuff, but the thought processes around things too, right? What are definitions? How are definitions change from one phase during the year to the next?
What I think is a cool question to ask yourself is like, what worked well last year and what didn't work so well? So like, if you reflect back and you're just like last year, I don't know, like the pressures of people, blah, blah, blah. And like considering last year, because we were, under quarantine most of our fucking life in 2020, 2021. Like, what did that look like? Right. Maybe there was more stress around that. And so like, you might be able to pinpoint what you could do better this year and maybe work on that. Like Karen said, like just pick 1 or 2 things, and it doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It just needs to be something that is going to make a difference. And yeah, progress, it could look different, right? Like, and I love that. Like January's like that second week of January where you kind of like, everybody kind of comes back from, vacation or whatever it is. Like some people go away, some people don't, but like that first or second week of January where you get the check-ins and they're like, my biggest win is I maintained.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes. And that should be. So let's summarize this. The goal in the holiday season, in my opinion, my expert opinion of years and years and years of coaching, is that this should be maintenance.
Yeah.
How that looks for you is going to be different than the person beside you. And honestly, you should make this decision now so that the people in your life who try to influence you to make other decisions are aware of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Share your like goal for the holiday season. like let people know, you know what, I'm not going to be drinking all the alcohol this year. So don't make it, don't bring it. Let people know that you're bringing your own desserts and doing things, like let them know in advance. And it makes navigating a little bit easier in terms of your specific experience in maintenance school. Yeah. One other thing I wanted to add is that maybe and again, maybe I'm wrong in thinking this, but I think the holidays as Christmas Eve, Christmas and Boxing Day and New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
I don't think about it for 2 weeks. Like it's not a 2-week stint.
No.
But that is the shift people take.
Yeah.
Well, the holidays are here. Like, in fact, Christmas parties start like now.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, okay, so at what point in time are you shifting away from your goals then? Because you got a Christmas party this weekend, you got this going on next weekend, you've got Christmas at this family, you got Christmas at this family. Like, okay, so are we 2 weeks? Or are we just a couple of days? And I really want people to reframe this for themselves. It's not 2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
It is specific dates that you actually probably are aware of. And yeah, you might have 3 or 4 meals to attend or things to do, or maybe you are going to Mexico for holidays. But again, is it every fucking meal that you have to be like, like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing? Or do you know what you're doing and you're just choosing to ignore it and just say, fuck it?
That's the thing. It's all about choice.
Yeah. Because
it's about choice.
Like I'm taking a couple of weeks off, but that doesn't mean like every day I'm like, okay, I can eat whatever I want and do whatever the fuck I want, not train and do things. Like, no, maybe I might sleep in a little bit more. Maybe I won't answer my clients. Maybe I'll actually take some deep breaths for myself and not for everybody around me.
Yeah.
But it's not a ticket to just forget what you've been working so hard towards. Yeah. And like, this is my point. It's like, it's the end of the year. Why do that to yourself?
It comes back to that fuck it mindset, right? And digging into why you have that fuck it mindset. Like, do you have that fuck it mindset because you don't actually believe in yourself? Do you have that fuck it mindset because you think that you don't deserve to give this gift of health and wellness to yourself? Like you're not worthy enough of it? Like dig into why you feel like you need to throw this stuff out the window that you've been working so hard on.
I'm going to irritate a few people when I say this. I know the answer to it because it's easier. It's easier to say, yes, I'll have that and do that than say, you know what? No, I'm actually tired of feeling like a piece of shit and feeling like I have no energy. I'm tired that I'm overweight, that I don't feel confident, that I'm tired of being bullied. Like you don't want to share that because you know what? That's fucking hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to share your story. It's hard to be in the spotlight of other people because that's what it means. It means sharing. Yeah. It means opening up and be accepting of your choices. You have to own this shit because no matter what, I don't give a shit who's around you at Christmas. You are still an adult making adult decisions.
Yes.
And it's hard to be accepting that. It's hard to say no to your best friend or your mom who always brings the bottle of wine. But you know what? When you decide that you don't want to be the person who drinks at a Christmas party and you decide that over and over again, guess what? It's fucking easy.
Yeah, it's true. It becomes, I've lived that, right?
Mm-hmm. I live it every day.
I used to be a part of, I don't drink either. I can't remember the last time I had alcohol. And to this day, people still offer me alcohol, even though they know I don't drink. And I'm just like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm good with my water, right? I used to be part of a family where it was like, it was expected for you to have seconds at family dinner and third helpings. And why aren't you eating more? Oh, you don't eat enough. You're so skinny. You need to eat more. You need to put some more meat on those bones, those kinds of comments, right? And yes, at first, was it hard for me to say, no, like I've had my plate. I'm good. Like I'm full. I'd actually like to have a little bit of dessert. So I'm not going to have any more of this. So I can have a little bit of that, but I'm good. Right. And that was hard at first. But the more I did it, like anything, the more practice you have at anything, the easier it gets. Right. And people you can, in many cases, you become an inspiration to other people, because then it turned around to people saying to me, like, it's really interesting to me that you do that at all of these dinners. Like, why do you do that? What's your thinking behind that? And that's really impressive. And I need to be doing that too. And, what can I do to create those kinds of habits for myself? Right.
Yeah. And
don't often happen like right away.
Yeah.
those are some of the things that are going on in other people's minds, right? So don't forget that you're leading by example too, and you're
Yeah.
modeling.
Yeah. And we're not saying you got to go into this being perfect. Like you're
No.
like, so, you've like earned your way to be like telling people how to eat at Christmas and what to
No.
avoid. That's not what we're saying, but we are saying that you have earned the right to make a decision for yourself and to
Right.
stand in your truths. And I
Exactly.
think that's really, really important. And that goes along back to, it goes into some of the other stuff we're going to talk about is like, this means that if you make this decision based on the environment and what you want this experience to be like, you don't want to be headbutting with people and you don't want to have the conversation and all the bullshit and you pull out your phone and people judge you, whatever that looks like for you, whatever narrative you have, you don't want that, then you have to have a fucking plan.
Yes.
That's why we're talking about this now, because I'm telling you right now, your plan matters for your environment, because there are going to be people that are going to say the shit that they're going to say and judge you the way they judge. Because like Karen said, people wonder, how is it that you can say no to the butter tarts and the cinnamon buns and all the chocolates, but they can't? And they will do whatever they can to bring you back into their circle of comfort.
Yes.
What is it? Are they self-sabotaging you? You will self-sabotage yourself by being influenced by people like that in your environment. So you got to plan in advance. Who's going to be around? Not only your environment, but what are you taking to said place and or bringing into the house? Like who's being invited? What are you asking them to bring? What are you cooking? These are all very simple things that you can do. In fact, like even like the whole, like, I got to bake. Do you? I mean, I just had a dinner. I just had a dinner with two of my really good friends in my life, and I love them to death. And I asked them, because COVID for the last 2 years, pandemic. I hate using the word COVID. I get in trouble. Spotify or somebody will catch it. We didn't have baking days. In fact, I don't think we have in the last 2 years, if I'm being honest, because we just played safe, right? We didn't know what was going on.
So you had like baking, like where you
we bake every year. Yeah. So for 2 years we haven't done it. And we just got together this last weekend and I said, are we setting a date? Yes. And you know what? We bake all the shit. Like I'm not going in there with healthy fucking protein balls. I don't even know, like my one girlfriend makes monster cookies and she makes the best monster cookies. Like, yeah, it's just like adding M&Ms to peanut butter and freaking chocolate chips and all that, but they're delicious. The other one makes haystacks. And like, I've done like Starbucks. What's that shit that they have at Starbucks that everybody loves?
Those cranberry.
Yes, the cranberry bliss. I've
Yeah.
made those. So like, again, like you can decide to bake or not bake.
Yeah.
No one is holding, I don't want to call it. No one's holding your life. Like there's nothing going on here. It's not life or death.
Yes,
maybe baking with your family is a life or death sentence. I don't know. But at the end of the day, again, this is part of the planning and the environment. If you don't want these things around you, because you do know, and you are aware of your own temptations and your, I don't know, like, do we call them like like triggers? Like if you know what they are, it's okay to tell people, like, don't bring them in. Because I'll tell you this right now. Why is it okay for someone who is a recovering alcoholic to say, please don't bring the alcohol, but it's not okay for you to say, I have a really difficult time with those fucking cinnamon buns. Don't bring them, please.
Yeah.
Like, do you understand what I'm saying, Karen?
100% agree with you. It's true. And the other thing I'll say, and this goes back to the invitations to all of the different functions. It's okay to say no.
Fuck yeah.
You don't have to go to every single thing. And I will go out on a limb and I will say, even if it's a family member who is inviting you over for a meal, if the past few years have not gone well for whatever reason, it's okay to say no. It doesn't matter who the person is. If you are in a situation where you're feeling disrespected, where you're not feeling supported, you're not feeling heard, you can say no. I don't care if that's a family member or an acquaintance or a friend. You can say no. You know what? I mean, make up a lie if you want. I don't care. Like, I've got something else going on that night, or be honest and say, you know what? It hasn't been a super great experience for me over the last few years. I'm not going to come, right?
Especially if the person or people that invite you are the same people that you often go in thinking, I can do this, I'm changing my ways, but it always turns out to be, it is their decision.
Yeah.
You have now succumbed to their, you know, their decisions, and you are now at home, wherever the place is, feeling guilty. And you can't stop those thoughts of like, I can't believe I just did this. I shouldn't have ate this. I shouldn't have done that. I should be working out, like all these shoulds. If these are the same people, say no.
Yeah.
Don't invite them, or just don't go. Or here's the thing, leave early. Like, I mean,
show up, put your face in the door, stay for an hour, and then go home.
Right? Like and again, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just trying to be a realist, because this is the shit we hear on a regular basis. It doesn't even have to be Christmas. It's the weddings. It's like, I'm going on a trip, family reunions, high school reunions, whatever it is. Like, it's just unreal. And I've been there. Karen's been there, where we've all felt like that's that pressure. And so we want to help you guys, you know, navigate these pressure type of scenarios. And it really goes back to planning, knowing who is in your environment and what that environment looks like, and understanding that the pressures that come with it, how to navigate those. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Like, I feel like, you know, we can, it comes back to like, what do you want this to look like?
Yeah.
And if I were to say to you, do you want your holidays the next few weeks to look like super stressful, and you're hating everybody, and you're not enjoying your time, you're super exhausted all the time? Or do you want to be going to functions? Do you want to end the holidays and go, I went to like 3 functions over the whole entire holidays, and they were the best time ever. Like, I was surrounded by people I love and who love me, and we had a great time. We had great conversations. Like, this is all, when we say, what do you want your holidays to look like? This is part of what we're talking about, right? Life is too short to spend time going to functions where you end up feeling like garbage and you hate every minute. So choose the functions that you want to go to, and stand up for yourself, and be okay with saying, no, I'm not going to go to that function if it's not a function that actually makes you feel good. We're supposed to enjoy the holidays.
You are. And if I were to go back to like what we talked about, the experience, if you want this experience to be something where you don't have those negative thoughts around food and stuff, this is why you don't want to have the fuck it mindset. Because remember, you've been working on your relationship with food. The labeling of good versus bad, and everything in front of you, I'm going to assume you are labeling already as bad for me. Yes. Like, oh my God, I got all the fucking shortbread and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So like, if you say, fuck it, guess what? That's how much more work you're going to have to put in to stay, like to keeping those negative thoughts to come in, right? That guilt and shame. And so I think it's really important that you just understand, like, this experience matters, and the narrative you have around it matters. And, you know, you have to be able to change that, because you've been putting so much work into changing the habits, the behaviors, the relationship with food. Because at the end of the day, you know, that's all the work that is required for, quote unquote, the fat loss goal, if that's what it is. Because we know most of the women that we work with, that's what their goal is. Outcome goal is always going to be weight loss in most cases. Right. So if you're doing that, and if every single time you go on a holiday, or, you know, Christmas comes around, you know, January, whatever, and you have this whole like fuck it mindset, that guilt is it's gonna sit there. And so much for the experience of like, I want this to be a guilt-free holiday or whatever, like, it's not going to happen, right? So you have to have that. You really have to. It goes back to the very first thing that we talked about. What do you want from the experience, right? Yeah. Do you want to sit in the corner, or, you know, I remember this, because it was shortly after I competed a couple times. And again, just so everybody knows, I'm talking about when I was a bodybuilder, but it's still an extreme diet. I don't give a shit what anybody says. After my extreme dieting protocols, I legitimately had a shitty relationship. Like, I was so afraid to eat peanut butter because I knew I couldn't stop. But my sister-in-law made peanut butter balls and froze them all the time for me, and legitimately would have a bag for me waiting at Christmas. And I would have 1 or 2, but oh my God, Karen, like, I would come home, put them in the freezer, and I'd be like, okay, Corey's not home, the girls aren't home, I'm going to go down there, I'm going to have 1 or 2, 3 or 4, 5 or 6. Yeah. And I would just, like, the guilt and the shame, because I still had that labeling of the food. Could you imagine if I'd had done the work yet? Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I wasn't quite there yet with my relationship with food, and understanding that peanut butter is actually okay. in
Mhm.
moderation. You can have it. You know
And
what I
so
mean?
are shortbread cookies and butter
And shortbread.
tarts
Oh
and
my
all of the
God.
things.
Yeah.
We're
Right.
all
So
okay.
like, that's the thing. So we want you to be able to walk away from these experiences. So that being said, when you're planning and you understand your environment, I think there's a few things that I've used in the past that have worked well that I'm going to share. And then Karen, you could maybe share some of your tips.
Yeah.
And I think about my mom, and my mom's no longer with us, and it's never been the same experience since I lost her. There's one thing that she loved, it was Christmas, and she had like the supersized deep freeze. The top of that deep freeze was filled with shortbread cookies, butter tarts, cinnamon buns, peanut brittle. She used to make it for my dad, like all the stuff, right? And so like that table or deep freeze was right in the kitchen though, because they had like this
Oh,
one, yeah, like this one room place, like her kitchen was all one big room and she had it kind of in the corner, but she would put all the stuff on there. And you were always around it.
yeah.
So what and that was difficult for me. I remember navigating that. Like it was so difficult because back then I was still had those labels around food, like, oh, this is just Christmas. I can have my cheat meal and all this kind of stuff, right? But after she had passed away and we started having Christmases here or at my brother's, that did shift. And I noticed that the food table, the hang around table, the where all the treats are table moved. And where we were sitting there chatting and stuff like that, it was no longer there to just pick from. So here's tip number one. If you're the type of family and or people that tend to have these food tables, this like the munchies, always out, the chocolates and whatever, the baked goods or whatever, don't hang around those areas. Instead, take your napkin or your plate, grab the things that you truly want in moderation, put those on your plate and move away from it. Don't sit there and talk and grab your glass of wine and start drinking right there where you're finished like the 2 shortbread cookies and now you're reaching for the third. Oh, and you might as well have a slice of, ham and whatever else is on the little table. So that would be the one thing is like the treat table, whatever it is, make sure it's in a different room of where you would just kind of like formally be talking and hanging out. The next
And
thing
I'll
would
just
be,
jump in
oh
there and
yeah,
say that also applies to company Christmas parties because okay, the
yes.
last couple of years we haven't really had company Christmas parties, but this year
Oh.
I'm feeling like we're going to have a resurgence of these things, right? So at the company Christmas party, don't hang around the bar talking to people. Don't hang around the dessert table talking to people. Again, grab your plate, fill it up, go to the bar, get your drink, and then move away. Because what happens is you're standing around talking to people and you're mindlessly eating this stuff. You don't even realize until 2 hours later, and you've looked down and you've eaten an entire plate of Nanaimo bars.
And this is applicable to the barbecues, the weddings.
Yes.
All these places all have the same thing. They all have like the food table or the munchie table. So stay the fuck away from it. Go to it.
Yeah.
But don't linger. And yeah, the bar especially, right? Because it's just the drunken munchies are going to happen if you're not careful. So then the other thing that I think is really important, and again, like it's why I kind of like to have Christmas here, but now that my family's all in one area, we navigate there, but take your own food, like not as in your own Tupperware. Take something that you truly want to have. So every year, and I think it's just by default, they're like, Brandy, can you bring salad? And I will, but I bring the different types of salads that everybody likes. So I'll buy a Caesar mix because I don't bring all the freaking little individual things. If there's a bagged salad somewhere with some fucking dressing, I'm going to put it in there.
100%.
Sometimes I like to do the ones with goat cheese and strawberries and stuff like that. And my sister-in-law actually does an amazing dressing herself. So I'm like, I'll bring all the stuff. Just make sure you have your dressing made. So usually I do that kind of stuff, but I also know, because I'll ask, like we have and families can do this too. So tip number 3, I guess, get out your freaking app or whatever, have a group chat and ask each other, like, what are you serving? What do you want to bring? Do that because I know in advance, okay, they're doing ham, they're doing turkey, because here's the thing, even though my kids are older, they still are kind of picky, and one favors ham over turkey, and they'll always ask me like, who's serving what? And we try to do that even if we're having our own Christmas here. Like, do I want to have turkey 2 days in a row or do I want to have ham? Are we doing steak? We've done that before too, where Corey's barbecued steak for Christmas. So again, have the conversation, have an open like group chat or whatever, so everybody knows what's being served. And then you can kind of plan for that. And the last thing is, actually it's 2 hand in hand, and you kind of already talked about it, The alcohol, that's a choice. So bring your own, or bring your own non-alcoholic. So I always have to take extra diet, whatever I drink, because my family doesn't drink diet soda, like ever. So that's my responsibility. If I want to have, like, if I don't want to be parched and be just stuck with like Ryan Coke or whatever it is that they're having, I'll take a case of diet, whatever, right? Or juice or whatever it is that Corey wants for mix or something like that. And then, but I don't drink. So I just say no. My dad brings wine every single time. I don't give a shit. I don't even care if he fucking makes that stuff. I'm not drinking it.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the last thing is just to choose that thing. And like I said already, like if you're at the table, come in with the mindset that I really want to have this, but check yourself. I promise you, if you check this thought and this narrative, it's going to make it better. But if you hear yourself saying, I shouldn't have this. Oh gosh, I shouldn't have this. Oh man. And if somebody offers to you, no, I shouldn't have that. Pause. Because why shouldn't you have that?
Right.
Why are you telling yourself you can't have when in fact you can? Give yourself permission. All right. Those are my tips.